Hello, I'm Aaron.
I'm Hector.
I'm Luke.
I'm Shelby.
And today we're going to be talking about the Silk Road, the British rule, the partition, and arranged marriage. So, let's talk about the Silk Road.
Yeah, we'll start off with the Silk Road. So, the Silk Road was basically a huge road. It wasn't just a straight road, it was like a bunch of different paths, and they all connected India to Europe and Asia. And this was a new way to exchange like all the goods and spices and silkworms from India to these other parts of the world.
I guess something about the route is that it was super dangerous, and a lot of times if you have like goods and spices and stuff like that, if you're on the road, it's very possible for them to get stolen.
Yeah, and this made it even more important. It made the people who could pass this road very wealthy, and the people that got hijacked, they obviously...
They probably lost every
Yeah,
bit.
they lost a lot,
So
I think another like interesting thing about it is like it wasn't just like goods like that. It was also like ideas that they like brought over. So like Buddhism, I know Islam passed through like the Silk Road. So it wasn't just like goods themselves. It was a lot of ideas that passed by as well.
Yeah.
I think also it led to a lot of like innovation of like medicine and science, because they were able to kind of collaborate with each other and just have these major breakthroughs in these areas that could really help people.
Yeah, and I think a fun fact would be that silk was like the luxury item, and that's why it's called the Silk Road.
Yeah, it wasn't just like silk. It was also like I know pearls went through from like India to Europe, ivory as well, which was like found in like elephant like the tooth of the elephant. So that's another thing that like passed from India all the way to Europe.
And what I thought was really interesting is that, like, India, they would, trade their silkworms and, like, weeds to, like, with these other countries, and they would give them gold in exchange. So they just accumulated so much gold that it ended up just being, like, they would use it for jewelry and stuff, just, like, and everything.
So you know how Buddhism was spread along the road. So a question I have for y'all is how did the spread of Buddhism along the Silk Road show how trade and religion can work together?
Well, I think like with trade, obviously you are going to new places and meeting new people, and a lot of the Indian and Buddhist missionaries would go to these new places, and their main like goal was to just talk about their religion and spread it, and then eventually people will kind of catch on, I guess.
Yeah, like she said, like even like when Europeans came over to like other countries, like their main focus as well was like to spread Christianity. So it's like no different from like spreading your own religion out like to other places around the world.
Yeah, very true.
And I have another question. So how do you think India's contribution to technology helped other countries and civilizations?
They like, I know they spread the number 0, like, cause the 0 was not like in Roman numerals, and like so that was something that was like passed along the Silk Road to Europe. I know that one. The game of chess as well, I think as well.
Yeah.
So those are like some of the few like little minute details that they were able to like bring over.
And I think it like really connected communities too, because it was like spreading ideas, and they were able to, there wasn't like a divide in between ideas and stuff. It was like everybody kind of was on the same page about what the number 0 is,
Yeah.
Should we?
And then we'll
You start talking about the British rule.
Yeah. So with the Silk Road, when was the Silk Road? Was it with the British rule?
No, so like the way
Or was it before?
It was before the British rule. And, like the reason why like a lot of European countries were trying to get to India around this time was like to cut out the Silk Road. So like, because the Silk Road was basically the middleman. So I have a middleman where like you can send your own company, send your own people to India and do like the trade yourself. So that was like one of the major reasons why a lot of European countries were trying to bypass the Silk Road. Was like they could cut out the middleman and they could directly get to like India themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the British, they were successful in taking over India and like getting a lot of their resources. And with British rule, they started the East India Company, and this was a company that like it wasn't necessarily the government. It wasn't like England ruling over India, but it was kind of like they would hire people to fight for them and take over land. And then later on, the Crown Rule came into effect.
Yeah.
How did the Crown Rule? Do you guys remember how the Crown Rule like kind of started?
I remember when it started in 1856.
Okay, that was the end of the Mughal rule. I remember. So that was like I guess they lost power.
And back to the British East India Company. They also fought the French East India Company, which was a big deal, and that was a big fight over land and goods. So I think that's a good point.
And then they weren't like, it wasn't like the government's fighting, it was joint corporations, right? How,
Yeah.
what
Like
exactly?
like a unification of multiple countries.
Yeah.
So like the Dutch and some of those other countries united with the East India British Company, and then like France and other countries united together. But like they never fought directly against each other. They paid off small armies.
They would hire like Indians too,
Yeah,
right?
they would use like religion as well, like so be like, oh, they don't like you or they don't
Yeah.
like us and stuff like that. Which
Gotcha. And then with the end of the British rule, and like the Crown Rule, that kind of started, or that did start the partition, which was like a major, like, time in India's history and like their fight for independence. Do you guys want to talk about it more?
So
I don't want to hog it.
I guess basically the partition was, they cut a line down the middle of India, and then the guy who cut the line was Radcliffe, but he was not experienced enough to do it. He did not know a lot about India when he did it, but he tried to base it off like religion, and really all it did was cause a bunch of chaos and like mass killings, because once they declared the line, if you were caught on the wrong side, then you're kind of just stuck there, and you're just trying to survive. And even if you were able to flee and ride like a train to the other side, there'd still be like mobs trying to like get you. It's just a really scary time.
Yeah, I think that's crazy because like one day you wake up and you just found out like you're on the wrong side of a line, that you had like no say in it, you had no choice in it. So yeah, that was crazy. Like your whole life savings, you probably like have family there, so now you gotta move your whole family or
Lose everything.
just like that. It's something you had no say in. Do you think it was a good idea, the line?
No.
No, I don't think it's a fair idea, because like you talked about, you don't really have a choice on where you end up.
I think it was like nice of Radcliffe to really consider like the geography and the religions, but at the same time, like for me, I felt like why did they were already living in peace, you know. Obviously there was still some violence and tensions between, but they still lived together. Like why was that really necessary?
There was no
divide?
need. There was no need for it.
Yeah.
And like Radcliffe was like, I think he felt terrible after it
he
happened, and he was rushed too during the process.
I mean, he had never been to India, so like even then he did not know the culture. He knew
He had no idea.
He based
He
it
was
just on
given
pure
his job.
religion.
Yeah, he did the best he could, but just didn't work out too well.
I and like the British, they pulled out all of their troops a month before the partition, which like then there was no type of police or anything to like keep order in line. And so when they declared like we're done with you, everything just like erupted in chaos, and so many people were killed. There was also a lot of violence to women.
Yeah.
So they moved the date. They moved the date. So the day that they were gonna announce the petition was Independence Day, and they decided not to announce it on that day. And so then they moved the date to a little bit later. Do y'all think that was a good idea, or do you think they just should have announced it on Independence Day?
That's a good question, because it was like independence, and it's like, okay, now we're free of the British rule, yay. But then it kind of gave them bad news of, oh, everybody has to leave, like if you are caught on the wrong side of the line. I don't know if it would have been better to just do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Independence Day sounds like it would be fitting.
Yeah. But usually Independence Day is like, you know, a time for celebration. So I think that's what they were kind of aiming towards, but...
They were trying to do, but I don't know, everyone just, I think from what I read, everyone was just really tense
Yeah.
on Independence Day, and
Yeah.
it sounds like it kind of backfired, or people weren't happy that they held that from them.
Yeah.
But realistically, if you didn't know that going in, you would think I would have thought it was a good decision, but I guess it wasn't. But it was, either way, whenever they announced the date, it wouldn't have changed too much, I don't think.
I don't think it would have either. Like, it still would have probably ended up in the same chaos and violence,
So like, did they show the line the day of, and that was like the day it became official, or was it like a pre-announcement to it?
I think people knew it was coming up, but
Yeah.
they didn't give them a lot of information, I don't think.
Yeah, that's
Did
what I
they
think.
know that, like, they were gonna have, like, some people were gonna have to leave their homes and stuff? Or was that just kind of, like, kind of told to them
I'm not
randomly?
sure. I would think so. I would think that they would know that they have to, that like this line's gonna be drawn and they have to be on their religion side of the line. So I think they would know, but I'm not sure because a lot of people were caught on the wrong side.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, if they did know, maybe they could have gotten out of there before.
It
But
should be like a pre-announcement to the
Yeah.
line, like it's coming up, or here's what the line's gonna look like. You might
yeah,
wanna
I don't
Yeah.
think
get
they
used to
did that.
Yeah,
So
it
that
was
would have been
rushed.
smart to do.
Because it's always easy to say like, oh, it was wrong, it shouldn't have been done that way. But like, how could have it been done? That's like a bigger question that we should ask
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
What could
And,
have
like,
been done better?
We're not put in that position, so obviously if we were in that position, we might have, you know, faced the same challenges, because it is like a hard position to be in for sure. But there was just such a big divide between like Hindus and Sikhs and Muslims, and most Hindu, so the lines were drawn between like Pakistan and India, and then East Pakistan. Was that what they called it?
Yeah, and then it became Bangladesh.
Yeah, and so like, and most Muslims that lived in those areas, they moved back, or most Hindus that lived in those areas moved back to India, but not all Muslims moved to those other areas. Is that what it was?
I mean, that seems right.
Yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
And I think that also shows that, like, when you look at Pakistan and Bangladesh, it's mostly all Muslims. Like, there's not really many others. And then in India, you still see like a
Is it
somewhat
yeah,
larger
is it 10% or
presence.
30%?
I think it's like 15,
Is it
something like that.
Yeah.
But there's also like Christianity there, and so I think there's such a big divide. But so not everyone left from India,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but those people still faced a lot of violence and probably had to protect their homes and whatnot.
So, speaking of controversy, how do we feel about arranged marriages?
So arranged marriages, I think that also talks about, like, kind of connects with the partition because, like, arranged marriages, you're not supposed to, like, marry outside of religion. So I think that also kind of enforces the divide between religions, and I don't like that. I think that's just not a good, like, view on life.
How do you feel about like how they find their matches?
I think it's wrong because it's not based off of love.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's based off your horoscope.
Yeah.
And, like, you gotta be from a different clan and
Yeah,
stuff.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
And it's different from modern times, how we kind of have the freedom to do what you, to choose who you want to choose.
Yeah.
And it's like,
What exactly is their process now, like in modern times?
So like
You'd say.
arranged marriages there are still very prevalent. So like it's over 90% is arranged marriages. But I think it's a lot more relaxed than it used to be. It used to be
Yeah.
like pretty much your parents just chose someone for you and you marry them no matter what. But I think now like
They have like
people
dating
kind of
apps.
meet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
They have-
matrimonial sites. Yeah.
is that a thing?
Because
They
that's
actually have apps?
I think they have
Yeah,
apps, but
it's,
it's
like,
not like
shoddy.
Tinder or anything.
yeah.
It's
Because like Tinder is like dating. It's like
It's like
talking
caste
date.
system
But,
too.
like, I don't think in India they really date. They like just talk and then they get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah, it's
like,
like if
they
they
get married
talk
very
and if they're a
fast.
good match,
Mhm.
like I guess they can get along with each other, and then their families match,
yeah.
and they're like then they just get married.
Mhm.
How long do y'all know like how fast that happens? Like, but when they meet to when they get married, is it quick or is it take like a year?
I
or
would
two?
imagine it's quicker
I
than
think it's
the Western.
fast. Yeah.
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 More.
I think it's a lot faster, and also they have like these days where they can just where there's a bunch of marriages going on, so it's maybe less planning, and also like their whole family pitches in with planning a wedding, so I think it can happen a lot faster.
Mhm.
But what is really interesting to me is that, you know, like arranged marriages, we kind of see them as a bad thing because it's not based on love. But then if you look at their divorce rates, they're like practically
They're
nothing,
lower.
Yeah.
which
I-
is like really interesting.
I wonder if that's because
Family ties.
I
there's
think
there's
it's
more
that,
family
yeah.
ties. There's more stress on them
Mm-hmm.
to not get divorced. Because if they get
Yeah,
divorced,
it breaks up the whole entire
it breaks
family,
up- yeah.
like
Yeah.
everybody, and like they all rely on each other too.
Or like, was it just like if you get divorced, the wife's family has to pay the husband's family like some compensation money?
Maybe I think
I think
so.
that's
I
one
think
of the
so.
because like if you get divorced, it's like a huge like even here in Western civilization, like you get divorced, you split
Yeah.
everything 50-50. So
Yeah.
whatever you're doing like just for like monetary gain, like getting divorced would probably be like not a wise idea.
No,
to do
exactly.
something.
Because also, like, all the families, like the sons and their families and everybody, they all, like, pitch in to a main, like, bank account. So if they were to get
Yeah.
divorced, like, what would happen to that money?
Your whole
Yeah.
family's life saving would go like cut in half just
Exactly.
like that.
That's obviously like one of the reasons the divorce rate is lower. But do you think that another reason could be that they're happier?
Oh, to me, like, we marry mostly based on love here. And I think a lot of people, once, like, maybe that love goes away or they have issues or whatever, they kind of give up. But when it's not based on love, you don't have those issues. And I wouldn't necessarily say you're happier, but I think you do, like, in some cases, you do learn to love that person.
You grow more attached to that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Probably that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more like attachment for security and like, you know, for life, not just because you love them, which is very controversial. I think in our society it's like easy for us to judge them, but you know they do things for a reason.
It goes back to like centuries old traditions and stuff. Yeah, I think what's crazier is like non-modern times. Like the rate has gone down most definitely, mostly because women are now given the opportunity to like do their own thing. Because before it must have been like, oh, you need a man in your life. You need a man. You need somebody to take care of you. And now it's like that's completely changed. So that it also shows how far we've come as a civilization. So like where women now can go do their own thing. They can go to schools, go to college and stuff like that. So now they don't need a man. So yeah, they don't need a man. That's a crazy statement. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think back then, they got married very young. Like young girls would get married to older men, but like now because they wouldn't go to school or anything. But now they go to school and whatever, and they can get married around the age 30, and like that's seen as acceptable.
Yeah.
So I think that's really nice. But also, we learned that once they do get married, they're kind of still told to take on those wifely duties of like having children, raising them, blah blah blah. So I'm hoping like as the years go on, we can kind of stray away from that too, like those expectations. Anything else, you guys?
Wrap it up.
I have a question. How
Okay.
do you think that if there was an arranged marriage in India and then the couple moved to the States, if that would make their divorce, if they got a divorce, do you think it'd make it more likely for them to get a divorce than if they stayed in India?
That's a good question.
This thing has mostly due just to family ties in general, like you know, it's like mostly family pressure to get married and stuff like that.
And stay together.
Yeah.
But if they're in the States away from their family, and like they see how the States work, where it's nothing's arranged, it's all.
Yeah.
You think that would influence them more, or you don't think it would change anything?
I do think they like keep those same values, but maybe like the different
Maybe
societal.
for their kids.
Yeah, maybe for the maybe they won't grow up with the same expectations.
Do you think arranged marriages could work in the States though?
No.
What do you think would be like?
Unless you met another very similar family,
Yeah.
but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think a big setback would just be a big cultural. It's hard to change the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, you know, we see with them, like they've been doing that for centuries and they can't stray away from it.
Yeah.
So it would be really hard for
us in the States
us
to
to
do it.
change,
Okay.
yeah. I do think like in a way we kind of do that, like with dating sites, you know, you kind of match with who you like. Or like sometimes your parents might set you up with somebody. So we kind of do it in a way, but it's not as serious here for sure. I think there's a lot of pressure there to get married and have kids and continue on family lines, and we as a society have kind of strayed away from that and focused more on careers, I would say.
Yeah, because I know before it's always been like it's the woman's job to like take care of the house, have kids and all that. But now that we've come so far as a society, now it's more like you are free to do whatever you want. You know, maybe like getting married isn't the best option at your like such a young age. You got so much to do in life.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions?
I think that's it.
That's good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We will attach our sources at the end of this video.